The empty palace. The palace of the alien queen was never quiet, but tonight it was, and that silence was heavy like a curse. The tall halls stood dark, the glowing crystal lights flickered low, and the voices of servants were gone. Instead, a dreadful sound echoed through the corridors, the sound of the queen's scream. Her daughters were missing. The guards searched every corner of the palace. They broke open doors, lifted heavy stones, and even looked in the royal gardens, but there was nothing. No footprints, no broken locks, nothing at all. It was as if the two young princesses had disappeared into thin air. The alien queen sat on her throne with her hands gripping the armrests. Her golden crown tilted, her eyes red from crying. She was not just a ruler, she was a mother, and now her heart was breaking. "Find them," she shouted, her voice sharp and shaking. "Find my daughters, or I will have every one of you executed." The guards bowed low, but their faces were pale. They had no answers, no trail to follow. Rumors spread quickly in the palace. Some whispered that the queen's enemies had taken the girls. Others whispered something worse, that the girls had run away on their own. But no one dared say these words near the queen. Hours passed. The palace grew colder, darker, emptier. Outside, the city also knew of the disappearance. Citizens locked their doors, afraid that unrest would spread. When royal blood was in danger, no one in the empire felt safe. Far below the shining towers in the dusty lower colony, a single human walked alone. His name was not known to most. He had no family, no power, just a small room and a life of hard work. Yet tonight, his steps slowed when he heard something strange. It was faint at first, a sound carried by the wind through broken alleys, a soft cry, like that of a child. The human turned his head. He listened again. Yes, there it was. Oh, weak sob, he followed the sound deeper into the shadows. The buildings here were abandoned. The air smelled of rust and damp stone. He came to a narrow corner where trash bins leaned against cracked walls. There, hidden under a broken sheet of metal, were two small figures. They were trembling. Their skin pale blue with faint glowing lines, their eyes wide and wet. Their royal markings clear even under the dirt. He froze. His heart began to race. He knew exactly who they were. The alien queen's daughters. The younger one pressed her face into her sister's shoulder. The older tried to be brave, but her lips quivered as she looked up at the human. For a moment, none of them spoke. Only the cold night air moved between them. Finally, the human crouched down, his voice low and gentle. "You should not be here, little ones. The whole city is searching for you." The older princess shook her head. "We cannot go back. They want us dead." The words hit him like a knife. He looked closer at them. Scratches on their arms, bruises on their legs. These were not the marks of a palace escape. These were the marks of children who had run for their lives. He hesitated. His mind told him to run, to stay away. For if soldiers found him with the royal daughters, he would be killed without trial. But his heart refused. He could not leave. Two frightened children alone in the dark. He slowly removed his coat and wrapped it around their thin shoulders. The younger girl leaned into his chest, shivering. Her small hands clutched at his shirt. The older one whispered, "Please, don't take us back." The human's jaw tightened. He was caught in a storm he never asked for, a storm that could crush him. But he also knew one thing. If he walked away now, these girls would not survive the night. Above them, the palace. Bells began to toll. A signal echoed through the city. Guards would soon search every alley, every house, every shadow. The human stood, lifting both girls into his arms. They were light, far too light for royal children. As if hunger had followed them, even inside the golden palace walls. He pressed them close against his chest, feeling their small hearts racing. In that moment, he made a choice. He would protect them. No matter the cost, the empty palace would remain cold, its queen drowning in despair. But down in the forgotten streets, a single human now carried the greatest secret of the empire, and with every step he took, danger grew closer, the humans' shelter. The night was long, and the city above was restless. Guards marched through the streets, their boots striking like hammers on stone. Lights from search drones cut across the alleys, scanning for any sign of the missing princesses. But far below, in a narrow street where shadows ruled, the human hurried with the two girls in his arms. His breath was heavy, yet he did not stop. He turned corners quickly, passed through broken gates, and finally reached a small, hidden door. This was his home. It was not much, just 2 rooms carved. From old stone, a table, a broken chair, and a bed too small for even one person. But here, it was safe. No guards ever came to this forgotten part of the colony. He pushed the door open with his shoulder, carried the girls inside, and shut it quickly. His heart raced as he listened for footsteps outside. Silence. Only the faint hum of the city above. The girls sat on his bed shivering, their fine royal. Clothes were torn, their skin bruised and dusty. They looked so different from the bright, untouchable princesses he had once glimpsed from far away. The younger one whispered, "Are we safe here?" The human knelt before them, speaking softly. "For now, yes, no one comes here, but you must stay quiet, not even a sound." He went to a small cabinet, pulling out bread, stale, but still edible, and a jug of water. He placed it before them. The older girl looked at the food with hesitation, her pride fighting against her hunger. But the younger one grabbed the bread quickly, her hands shaking, and began to eat. The human watched them with quiet sorrow. These were royal daughters, children of the most powerful being in the empire, and yet they ate like street beggars. After a few moments, the older princess finally spoke. Her voice was low, almost broken. "If we go back, they will kill us." The human froze. He looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Who?" She swallowed hard. Her glowing lines dimmed as if with fear. "The queen's own guards, some of them serve another. They whispered that our mother is weak, they want the throne, and we were in the way." The words chilled him. The empire was rotting from within. The queen's children hunted not by outsiders, but by those sworn to protect them. The human sat back slowly. His life had always been small, simple. He worked in the colony docks, carrying crates, fixing machines, surviving day by day. He had no place in the games of rulers and traders. Yet here he was, with the 2 most important children in the galaxy sitting on his bed. The younger girl leaned against him, suddenly pressing her small head to his chest, her voice muffled. "Don't leave us, please." He felt her tiny heartbeat, fast and frightened. Something inside him shifted. He had never been needed like this before. But the danger was great. If the guards found them here, he would be executed. For kidnapping, no one would believe his truth. They would only see a human daring to touch royal blood. He stood and moved to the window, peeking through a crack. Outside, he could see torchlight far away, patrols searching the lower colony. Their voices echoed through the stone streets. "Check every home. Search every corner." His heart pounded. He turned back to the girls, whispering urgently, "Hide quickly." The older one grabbed her sister, pulling her beneath the thin blanket on his bed. They curled together, silent, trembling. The human sat down at the table, pretending to eat, his face calm though sweat ran down his back. Moments later, the sound came. Knocking, hard and sharp. The human froze. He forced himself to rise slowly and open the door. 2 alien soldiers stood outside, their tall frames glowing faintly in the dark. Their eyes scanned the room. "Human." One of them barked, "Have you seen anything unusual tonight? 2 younglings, blue-skinned, about this high?" He gestured with his hand. The human shook his head quickly. "No, sir. I've been here all night." The soldier's eyes narrowed. His gaze swept across the small room, pausing at the bed. The human's heart nearly stopped. He stepped forward, blocking the view. "Just old blankets, nothing more," he said firmly. The silence stretched. The second soldier finally grunted. "Search the next one. This place stinks of rust. They would not hide here." The 2 left, their heavy steps fading into the night. The human shut the door slowly, his legs weak. He turned back, pulling away the blanket. The 2 girls stared up at him with wide eyes. silent tears running down their faces. He sat beside them, his voice low but steady. "You cannot stay here long. They will keep searching. They will not stop until you are found," the older princess asked softly. "Then where will we go?" The human looked down at his rough hands. Hands made for work, not for saving lives, yet now those hands held the fate of 2 royal children. "Somewhere safe," he said finally, though his voice carried no certainty. The younger girl leaned against him again, whispering through her tears, "You are safe." Her words sank deep into him. He realized the truth. Whether he wanted it or not, he was now their protector. The palace might be empty of their laughter, but here in his small broken shelter they were alive. And as he listened to the distant horns of soldiers still searching, he understood one thing. The battle for the queen's daughters had only just begun. The bounty hunters moved closer, one of them pushing on wagon doors, checking each one. The human's heart raced as footsteps stopped outside their hiding place. A hand touched the latch. Slowly, it began to lift. The human's muscles coiled, his knife ready, his body prepared to fight and die if needed. But just as the latch lifted halfway, another voice shouted from across the ruins, "Over here!" I saw movement. The bounty hunter paused, grunted, and ran toward the sound. The latch fell shut again. The human let out a slow breath, his hands shaking. The girls clung to him in silence. The danger had passed for now, but the message was clear. They could not stay here for long. The walls of the empire were closing in, and soon even the shadows would not hide them. The human looked at the 2 children pressed against his chest, their trust in him unshaken despite the fear. He whispered almost to himself, "We must leave this city, we must run far before the storm swallows us whole." And in that dark, broken railway station his escape plan began to take shape. The hunt morning came cold and gray over the broken railway station. The human had not slept at all. His eyes were fixed on the cracks in the wagon wall. Every shadow outside looked like a soldier, every sound like a bounty hunter drawing near. The 2 alien girls woke slowly. Their small bodies ached from the hard floor, but they did not complain. The older one stretched her thin arms, her face, pale but steady. The younger pressed her head against the human's chest, whispering, "I dreamed of home, but when I woke, only you were here." The words cut into him. A part of him wished he could return them safely to the queen, end their suffering. But he remembered the bruises on their skin, their whispers of betrayal, and he knew the palace was no home anymore. When the supply train finally rattled past, the human's chance came. He slipped the girls into the shadows of a freight cart and climbed in after them. The train groaned, then began its long crawl out of the colony. For a while, silence surrounded them except for the turning of wheels. The girls huddled close, wrapped in his coat. Their trust was heavy on his shoulders, heavier than any burden he had ever carried, but safety was a dream too short. By midday, the human saw the first signs that they were being hunted. In the distance, flyers hovered above the train, their metal wings sharp in the sunlight. On their sides, the emblem of bounty hunters gleamed. The human cursed under his breath. He pulled the girls deeper into the cart, hiding them behind crates. His knife glinted in his hand, though he knew a blade was little against machines. The flyers circled once, then sped ahead. The human's gut twisted. He knew what was coming. Minutes later, the train screeched to a halt. Voices shouted outside. Boots struck the ground. The human heard the clanging of doors thrown open one by one. The girl's eyes widened. The older one grabbed his sleeve, whispering, "They are here. They will find us." The human crouched low, pressing a finger to his lips. "Not a sound," he whispered. The door to their cart rattled, then burst open with a crash. Light flooded in. Silhouettes of 3 hunters stood at the entrance, tall and armed with shock rifles. The human shielded the girls with his body. His knife raised, his heart thundered. In his chest, one hunter stepped in, scanning the shadows, his voice low, cruel. "Come out, human, hand them over, and maybe you'll keep your life." The human said nothing. His silence was his weapon. His eyes burned with a promise. He would die before surrendering them. The hunter smirked. "So you choose death." He raised his rifle, but at that moment, the train jolted forward again. One of the engineers must have panicked. The sudden motion threw the hunters off balance. The human seized the moment, lunging forward. His knife cut deep into the first hunter's arm. The man roared in pain, stumbling back. "Run!" the human shouted to the girls. They scrambled out the back of the cart as the human fought desperately. The second hunter swung his rifle like a club, striking the human's ribs. Pain exploded through his chest. But he held on, slashing wildly. His blade caught the man's leg, forcing him down. The younger princess screamed as she reached the ground. The older pulled her forward, dragging her toward the tall grass beyond the tracks. The human staggered after them, blood on his shirt. His breaths came ragged, but his eyes stayed locked on the girls. He would not let them out of his sight. The hunters regrouped quickly, chasing after them. Their voices rang out, "Catch them! Do not let them escape!" The human grabbed the girls' hands, pulling them into the forest near the tracks. Trees swallowed them, branches whipping against their faces. The ground was uneven, but they ran, driven by fear. The hunters followed, their rifles firing bursts of energy that scorched bark and lit the air with blue light. The girls cried out in terror, but the human never slowed, his grip on them unbreakable. Finally, after what felt like endless running, they reached a narrow ravine. Water rushed below. The human stopped, chest heaving. The hunters were close, their voices echoing through the trees. The older princess looked at him, her voice shaking. "We cannot cross, the water will sweep us away." The human looked at the current, then at the frightened girls. His choice was clear. Better the river than their hands. He lifted the younger child into his arms and grabbed the older one's hand. Together they leapt. The cold water swallowed them whole, pulling them under. The current dragged them like leaves. The girls clung to him, their screams lost in the roar. The human fought with all his strength, kicking, pushing upward, until at last they burst to the surface, gasping for air. They drifted far downriver, hidden by foam and branches. By the time they crawled onto the muddy bank, the hunters were gone, their angry shouts lost far behind. The girls collapsed beside him, shaking, their clothes soaked, their faces pale. The younger one whispered through chattering teeth, "And I thought we were going to die." The human pulled them both close, holding them against his chest. His voice was rough but steady. "Not while I breathe." Above them, the sky darkened with storm clouds. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun. But for now, the human had kept his promise. The alien queen's daughters were still alive and safe. Safe only because he refused to let go, return to the throne. The storm clouds broke open before nightfall. Rain poured down in heavy sheets, drenching the forest where the human and the two alien girls hid. The cold water soaked their clothes, but it also washed away their tracks, covering their trail from the bounty hunters. The human led the girls deeper into the trees, searching for shelter. Finally, they found a small cave hidden behind thick vines inside. The air was damp, but at least it was dry. He built a small fire with trembling hands, his ribs still aching from the fight. The girls huddled close to the flames, their faces pale but their eyes determined. The older one whispered, "We cannot keep running forever. They will never stop. As long as we hide, they will hunt us." The human stared into the fire, his mind heavy with the truth. She was right. Every step farther into the wilderness only delayed the end. The empire itself was against them. Rumors, betrayal, hunters. It would not stop. Not until the queen either lost everything or reclaimed her power, and he realized something he had feared from the beginning. The only way to save these children was not to keep them hidden, but to take them back to the very place they had fled, the palace. It was madness, yet the more he thought, the clearer it became. The daughters were proof of the betrayal within the queen's court. Without them, the queen would be powerless. With them, she could expose the traitors, unite her people, and protect her throne. The younger princess looked up at him, her small voice cutting through the silence. "You are thinking of something." The human gave a slow nod. "We must return. Not tomorrow, not in a week. Tonight, before the hunters close every path. If we wait, we lose. If we move now, maybe we win." The older one's eyes widened. "Return? But the traitors are there. The guards will kill us before we reach her." "Not if we move carefully," he said. his voice steady. Not if I take you myself. The girls fell quiet. They trusted him, but the thought of stepping back into the palace filled them with dread. The human felt that fear too, but he had already made his choice. When the rain slowed near midnight, he wrapped the girls in his coat, hiding their faces. He led them through the forest, following old paths that twisted toward the city. His memory of the colony's lower tunnels would guide them back. By dawn, they reached the outskirts. The golden towers of the Queen's palace rose high above, glowing faintly under the stormy sky. Soldiers patrolled the gates. Banners hung heavy with rain. The palace looked like a fortress of stone and fire, but to the human it looked like a cage. He guided the girls to a hidden entrance he remembered from his days working near the palace docks, a servant's tunnel, forgotten and rarely used. The stones were cracked, the door rusted, but it opened with a hard push. Inside, the air was thick with dust. The tunnel wound upward, carrying them closer to the throne room. Every step echoed too loudly. Every flicker of torchlight made the human tense. Finally, they reached a tall door. Voices echoed beyond it. Guards, courtiers, the sound of a court in turmoil. The older princess clutched his sleeve, her voice trembling. What if they kill you before mother sees us? The human smiled faintly, though his face was tired and grim. Then you must run to her yourselves. Shout her name. She will hear you. She must. He pushed the door open. Whispers of betrayal. The night passed slowly in the human's small home. The two alien girls finally fell asleep, curled under his thin blanket, their breathing soft and uneven. The human sat awake, his back against the wall, staring at the flickering lamp. He could not close his eyes. Every sound outside made his heart beat faster. The whole city was looking for them. Posters were already being nailed to walls, promising gold and power to anyone who returned the princesses to the palace. But the human knew the truth now. Returning them was no rescue, it was a death sentence. By morning, the city was alive with rumors. People gathered in groups, whispering in fear. Some claimed the princesses were dead. Others swore they had been taken by shadowy creatures. And a few whispered of something far darker, traitors inside the palace itself. The human went out early, leaving the girls hidden. He needed food, and he needed to hear what the people were saying. His hood was low over his face as he passed through the market. At a stall selling dried roots, he overheard two merchants talking. They say the queen grows weaker by the day, one said. Without her daughters, she has no strength. The court is breaking apart. Not just the court, the other answered, in a low voice. Some of the guards, too. There are names whispered in the halls. Names of those who would see the queen fall. They want a new ruler. The human kept his head down, but his ears caught every word. He traded for bread and slipped away. Every step home felt heavier. Back in the shelter, the older princess was awake, her glowing lines dim in the shadows. She looked at him with eyes too wise for her age. You heard it too, didn't you? She asked. The human hesitated, then nodded. Yes. There are whispers everywhere. Your mother is surrounded by traitors. The girl lowered her head. Her voice trembled. I heard them before we ran. They spoke in the palace halls when they thought we were asleep. They said the queen was too soft, too weak to rule. They said once we were gone, no one would protect her. The younger princess stirred, her small hand clutching the human's sleeve. She whispered, They wanted to take us away. We only escaped because the kitchen servant showed us a hidden path. The human felt his chest tighten. The queen's empire was not only in danger, it was already bleeding from the inside. He sat at the table, running a hand through his hair. His life had always been simple, but now he carried knowledge that could change everything. Knowledge that could get him killed. That evening he risked stepping out again. He moved through the colony carefully, avoiding the guards. He went to the tavern near the docks, a place where rumors spread faster than fire. Inside, smoke filled the air. Rough workers sat drinking, their voices low. The human found a seat in the corner listening. A hooded figure spoke to a group of strangers. The reward is high, but be warned. If you find the children, don't give them to the palace guards. Not all guards serve the queen anymore. Some will slit their throats just to please their new master. The human gripped his cup tightly. His suspicion was true. Danger was not only from the queen's enemies outside, but from her very protectors. Suddenly, a voice cut through the noise. I heard a human was seen walking with two little figures last night. The human's heart skipped. He kept his head down, fighting the urge to run. His fingers itched toward the knife hidden in his coat. A man at another table laughed. Humans? They can barely feed themselves. Who would trust one with royal children? The crowd laughed with him. The suspicion passed like smoke, but the human knew the rumor had begun when he returned home. The girls ran to him, their faces pale with fear. The older one asked, "Did they see you?" He shook his head, though his eyes betrayed the truth. "No, but people are speaking. They are looking everywhere. Even your mother does not know who to trust anymore." The younger princess pressed against him, her voice small. "But we trust you." Her words sank into him like a blade and a blessing both. He was just a man with nothing, yet now he was the shield for two royal lives. The human sat with them, speaking softly. "Listen, you must not show yourselves. Not to anyone. Not even to soldiers in golden armor. Promise me this." Both girls nodded, fear and determination in their eyes. But outside, the whispers spread, wider. Neighbors began watching the human's door too closely. Traders who never cared for him before now gave sharp glances. Suspicion grew like fire in dry grass. One night, as the human lay awake, he heard voices outside his door. "Maybe he knows something," a man whispered. "He's been acting strange. He goes out at odd hours. Should we tell the guards?" Another asked. The first voice answered, "Yes, but only the right guards, the ones who will pay." The human's blood turned cold. He moved silently to the bed where the princesses lay asleep. He watched them for a long moment, their faces peaceful. Unaware of the storm gathering outside, he clenched his fists. The time of hiding was ending, the empire was breaking, and soon his small shelter would no longer be safe. For now, he kept the secret close, but he knew the truth. The traitors were not whispers anymore. They were coming closer step by step, and when they came, he would have to choose, stay hidden or fight for the lives that now depended on him. The escape plan. The human barely slept that night. He sat against the wall, listening to every sound outside his door. The whispers of neighbors still rang in his head. They were watching him, waiting for the right moment to betray him. He knew he had little time left. At dawn, the city bells echoed through the colony. Patrols began again, soldiers shouted orders in the streets. Their voices carried a tone of anger. The search for the missing princesses was no longer quiet. It was desperate. The human looked at the two girls curled on his bed, their small bodies pressed close, their breaths uneven. They were children, yet the empire's fate rested on them. He clenched his fists. He could not keep them here anymore. It was only a matter of time before someone knocked again. And next time, the soldiers would not leave so easily. He woke the girls gently. "Get up, little ones. We cannot stay. It is not safe." The older princess rubbed her eyes, fear sparking in them. "Where will we go?" "Somewhere far from here," he said firmly, though he had no clear plan. "But first we must leave the colony tonight." The younger one grabbed his hand tightly. "Will the soldiers find us?" The human knelt, meeting her frightened gaze. "Not if you stay quiet and listen to me. Do you trust me?" She nodded without hesitation. Her sister followed slowly, and in that moment, the human knew their lives rested on his every choice. Searched through his small belongings, pulling out rough clothing, worn cloaks, patched trousers, and old boots. He cut strips from a dirty cloth and wrapped them around the glowing lines on the girls' arms, hiding their royal markings. He smeared ash across their faces, turning them into two ordinary beggar children. The older princess looked at herself in the cracked mirror, her lip trembling. "I do not look like me anymore." The human placed a hand on her shoulder. "That is the point. You cannot be seen. As you, only then will you survive. When night came, the human led them out, his heart pounded with every step. The streets were alive with patrols, guards questioning families, drones humming above. He kept his head low, guiding the girls through alleys no one used anymore. They reached an old passage near the docks. The entrance was hidden by collapsed crates and broken wood. The human pushed it aside, revealing a tunnel, carved long ago for water lines. Now it was dry, dark, and forgotten. "Stay close, Qui," he whispered, holding their hands as they stepped inside. The tunnel was damp, the air heavy. Rats scurried past their feet. The girls squeezed his hands tighter, but they did not complain. Their small faces showed silent courage. Hours passed as they moved through the maze of tunnels. The human counted turns carefully. He had worked in the colony docks for years. He knew these paths better than most, yet even he feared getting lost. At one point they heard voices above, guards searching the streets overhead. The older princess gasped, but the human quickly covered her mouth, whispering, "Silence." They waited, breathless, until the voices faded. Only then did they continue. When they finally reached the end of the tunnel, they emerged near an abandoned railway station. The rails were rusted, the roof broken. No one came here anymore. The human led them to a cargo wagon hidden in the shadows. It smelled of iron and dust, but it was safe. He lifted the girls inside and followed after them, shutting the door quietly. Younger one looked at him with wide eyes. "Will this take us away?" "Not yet," he said, "but tomorrow a supply train will come. We must hide until then." The girls lay down on the hard floor, using his coat as a blanket. The human sat with his back against the wall, knife in hand, watching the small crack of light under the wagon door, but the night would not be peaceful. Near midnight, voices echoed in the distance. Heavy steps crunched against gravel. The human tensed, gripping his knife tighter. Through the crack, he saw shadows. Bounty hunters. Drawn by the promise of gold, one voice whispered, "Spread out. The human has them, I know it. He hides in these ruins." The human's blood turned cold. They were closer than he feared. His secret was no longer safe. Inside the wagon, the older princess clung to her sister, whispering, "They will find us." The human turned to them, his eyes hard. "Not if you stay quiet. No matter what you hear, do not make a sound. Do you understand?" Both nodded, their small faces pale but determined. He pushed the door open. The throne room was vast and bright. Its golden pillars reached the ceiling like the trunks of endless trees. At the far end sat the alien queen, her crown tilted, her face pale, her eyes empty with grief. The moment the crowd saw the human enter, silence crashed through the hall. Dozens of guards raised their weapons, their voices thundered, "Seize him!" The human stood tall, the girls behind him. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his voice was steady. "I bring you what you lost." The guards advanced, their steps sharp and deadly, but before they could reach him, two small voices cut through. "The silence, mother." The queen froze. Her eyes widened. Her trembling hands rose as her daughters ran from behind the human, their royal markings visible again, glowing with life. The room erupted in chaos. Some shouted in joy, others in disbelief. Guards froze mid-step, confused. The queen herself stood, tears spilling down her face. "My children," she whispered, her voice breaking. She rushed forward, falling to her knees as the girls threw themselves into her arms. The human stood still, his knife lowered, his heart pounding. He had done it. He had brought them home, but the danger was not over. Several guards shouted, "It is a trick! He kidnapped them! Kill the human!" They rushed forward, blades drawn. But the princesses turned at once, their small arms outstretched. "No! He saved us." The older cried, "He is the reason we live." The queen looked up, her tear-stained face turning hard. Her voice cut through the noise, sharp as steel. "Stop, all of you." The guards froze, lowering their weapons reluctantly. The queen stood, her daughters clinging to her hands. She looked at the human, her eyes burning with both gratitude and suspicion. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling between command and plea. Why would a human risk his life for children not his own? The hall was silent. every eye fixed on him. The human's chest rose and fell, his words simple but strong. Because they needed someone to hold them. The silence deepened. Even the traitors hiding among the court dared not speak. The queen stared at him, and for the first time in many years, she bowed her head, not as a ruler, but as a mother. Her daughters pressed against her, their small voices whispering again and again, "He saved us." The court would not forget this moment. The human had walked into the heart of power and survived, not with strength or weapons, but with courage and love. But in the shadows of the throne room, eyes narrowed, traitors clenched their fists. Their plans had not ended. They had only been exposed. The battle for the throne was far from over. The human's honor. The throne room remained silent after the human's words. His voice still echoed through the golden pillars. Because they needed someone to hold them. The alien queen stood frozen. Her daughters pressed against her side. Her trembling hands stroked their hair as tears ran down her face. But around her, the court was not silent. Whispers rose like snakes. "He is lying," one guard muttered. "He stole them, used them to trick Her Majesty." Another voice hissed, "A human dares stand here? Kill him before he poisons the queen's mind." The human stood still, his knife lowered but ready. His eyes moved across the hall, watching, reading. He could feel the traitors hiding in plain sight, men and women who wore royal armor but carried daggers for the queen's back. The older princess stepped forward suddenly, her small voice sharp. "No, he tells the truth. We ran from those who swore to protect us. It was his arms that carried us through the dark. It was his food that kept us alive. Without him, we would be dead." The younger one grabbed her mother's hand, her wide eyes brimming with tears. "Please do not hurt him, Mama. He saved us when no one else would." The queen's face hardened. Her grief turned to fire. She raised her hand high, her voice sharp as a blade. "Bring forward the guards who stood watch the night my daughters vanished." The court shifted nervously. Several guards hesitated, but when they stepped forward, the princesses cried out, pointing at them with shaking fingers. "It was them," the older shouted. "They spoke of killing us. They served another master." Gasps filled the hall. The accused guards fell to their knees, begging. But the queen's wrath was unstoppable. "Seize them," she commanded. Loyal soldiers rushed in, chains rattling, dragging the traitors away. Their screams echoed through the throne room as the queen's fury burned bright. The human stood quietly, his chest rising and falling. His work was done. He had carried the children home, exposed the traitors, and now the empire had a chance to heal. But he knew his place. He was only a man, a worker from the lower colony. He had no place in a hall of kings and queens. Slowly, he lowered his head and turned to leave. "Stop." The queen's voice rang out. The human froze, his hand still on the door. "Come forward," she commanded. Her voice shook, but it was steady with power. He turned slowly, his boots heavy on the stone floor. All eyes followed him as he approached the throne. He knelt without a word, his head bowed. The queen looked down at him, her daughters still clinging to her hands. For a long moment, she said nothing. Only her tears fell. But then, in a voice that carried across the hall, she spoke. "This human," she declared, "carried the blood of my blood when my own guards betrayed me. He shielded them with his body, fed them with his bread, and gave them the strength to return home." Whispers rose again, but they were no longer filled with doubt, only awe. The queen's voice grew stronger. "He is not a thief, not a traitor. He is the savior of the royal house." The daughters stepped forward, one holding each of the human's hands, pulling him to his feet. Their voices were small but clear. "He is our protector." The queen raised her hand once more, her crown gleamed under the light. "From this day, he shall no longer be counted as a common worker, but as one honored by the throne. His name will be carried in songs, his courage remembered in our history." The human looked up slowly. His eyes met hers. "I do not want gold or titles," he said quietly. "I only wanted them safe." The queen's lips trembled. Her heart, once broken, was full again. "And because of that, You will be remembered more than any who sought power." The courtiers bowed their heads. Soldiers lowered their weapons. The human stood among them, still dressed in torn clothes, but taller than any lord. That night, when the palace grew quiet again, the human sat in a chamber near the throne. The two girls curled up against him, asleep. Their small bodies rested on his chest, just as they had in the dark alleys and cold forests. The queen entered quietly, watching them, her voice soft for the first time. "They sleep only when you are near. You gave them peace no crown ever could." The human looked at her, his voice calm. "They needed someone to hold them, and I could not let go." The queen nodded slowly. "A mother first and a ruler second. Then you will never have to. They are safe now, but let it be known. They live because a human chose to stand when others fell." The fire in the chamber burned softly. Shadows danced on the walls, and in that moment the empire itself shifted. For all the galaxies had said humans were weak, fragile, and unworthy. Yet tonight, the queen's daughters lived because one human refused to break. The tale of betrayal, loss, and courage would be told for centuries. But above all, one truth would remain. When the palace was empty and hope was gone, it was a human who carried life back to the throne.